Hey friends, welcome back to my channel. Today's video is going to be all about my career regrets in cybersecurity. But I do think that a lot of these career regrets that I have, you can probably have in any job in technology or elsewhere. So basically just accumulation of my almost 3 years of cybersecurity experience. Okay, so the first thing on my list is just not having the confidence, I guess, to talk to my manager more about my career goals and what I actually want out of my career. So this is definitely a topic I've touched on in the career expectations versus reality video that I did with Luca. I can link it down below. But that was something I learned from not taking my own advice, because when it comes to your career, it really is about you advocating for yourself and telling your manager the goals that you want to achieve, whether it's performance reviews or getting a bonus or getting a promotion or getting a raise. Like, all those things are conversations you should be having with your manager before that end of year performance review. Basically, there should be continuous conversations around those topics before you get to the end of the year and it's time to rate yourself or your manager to rate you. And if you don't have those conversations beforehand, you and your manager could be on completely different pages about what goals that you're trying to achieve and how far you can basically get in your career, at least based on your performance review. And that was always something I really struggled with, because I never wanted to tell my manager that, hey, I'm trying to go for and exceeds expectations this year in this area. And I feel like part of it was because I was in my early career, and at least in my company, the exceeds expectations rating is sort of stack ranked. And if you guys aren't familiar with what stack ranking is, it basically means that there's a number of high performers, average performers, and lower tier performers. But my company, it wasn't as bad where you have to have people at the bottom, but there were a really small number at the top where you could have people exceed expectations. And even if the whole team is exceeding expectations, there may only be 2 or 3 spots at the top, and it doesn't matter how good everyone else is doing. It's set that way, so not everyone can get an exceeds, basically. So yeah, that was always something I kept in mind, because I was youngest on the team, and I'm sure someone with 15 to 20 years of experience and leading more projects might have deserved that rating more than me. And that was why I just never brought up career things like that with my manager, even though it definitely kind of came back to bite me, because that was something that I wanted out of my career, but I just never spoke up on it. Okay, number 2 is letting people take credit for my work. So this is a topic I've definitely talked about, I think, in one of my videos before. I don't know if I archived that video or not, but basically there was at one point in my early career where I was working in a development team, and there was another person on the team who was a more senior developer than me. And basically I was really just too shy to demo my own code or demo the features I created. And this person would take over all the demos in every call and basically just demo it as his own. And that was definitely something I, could have personally prevented if I had the confidence to speak up and been like, hey, I'm gonna demo my own stuff. But I did not do that until, it got to the point where I was really bothered by it, and it just made work not the best experience for me, because I was always working with this person who was taking my work, showing it as his own. Also, I was just too quiet, or I just didn't know how I could speak up on it when it was already happening. Yeah, basically ended up consulting my manager and another tech lead mentor that I had at the time. So it got fixed in the end, and I actually talked to that person. We kind of talked it out, but I only worked with them on that one project. So it's not like this person was on my team for the longer term, but it was just something that affected me a lot in terms of my mental health at work. And I just never thought that would happen, because in school, I'm sure there's like plagiarism and, people cheating, but you wouldn't really expect that from a work environment. At least I didn't. And when it happened, I really just didn't know how to react on it. But I don't, hold any hard grudges against that person or anything. It just happened that way. And I'm sure they were not a horrible person, and I may not have known what they were doing. And maybe they thought they were doing me a favor because I was shy and didn't want to demo my code, so they demoed it for me. But it still would have been nice if they, gave some kind of disclaimer that, hey, this is code that Sandra wrote or something. But that did not happen. So all in all, I think there's definitely 2 sides to it, and part of it could definitely have been stopped by me personally. But that's definitely one of the biggest regrets I had in my early career. So if you're ever in a situation like that, or think you might be in a situation like that, definitely just stand up for yourself if that is happening to you, especially if it's like a toxic team environment, or maybe your manager isn't aware. Make sure you always have open communication. All right, number 3 on this list is really just not focusing on learning the cybersecurity foundations in my early career. So you guys know I was in a rotation program. My first one was as a developer, and all throughout that first year, I really didn't delve deep at all into cybersecurity. It wasn't until I was in my second team doing actual pen testing where I was like, hey, this stuff is pretty neat. I should have looked into it a bit more when I started this job, you know? And that was when I also studied for my Security Plus certification, which I also made a video on below if you guys want to check that out. But that was really the starting point of me really diving into cybersecurity and understanding the concepts, because before that I did in college get a certification in computer security and digital forensics, not internationally affiliated, but just a certification part of my university, and that was all the cybersecurity experience that I had. And even though I was working in the overall cybersecurity organization, I was still a developer, so I was just like, I don't really need to know cybersecurity in depth yet, and I wish I spent more time kind of cultivating those foundations, because it would have helped me, first of all, so much when I was studying for my Security Plus, and it would have also helped me more in my conversations with other teams in my first year. Even though I was a developer, there were also times when I was speaking to different teams, like the malware prevention team or the incident response team, basically getting pulled into the things that my manager was working on, because she was focused on cybersecurity strategy. So if I had just spent more time focusing on cybersecurity foundations and understanding, you know, what a WAF is, like these things are pretty basic now when I think about it, but I had no idea what they were when acronyms came up during meetings, and I had no idea what people were saying, and I would just kind of end up getting lost in conversation. But then it also feels like too simple of a question to ask that I kind of just let it go, and I definitely did not learn as much as I could in my job because I didn't spend more time focusing on foundational cybersecurity concepts. Okay, number 4 on this list is not going for more public speaking opportunities. So I'm sure there's some people out there who think I have a YouTube channel, so I must love talking and giving presentations and talks, I don't know. But I'm definitely not a natural born public speaker. It doesn't come naturally to me, and I also feel like I have a lot of ums and likes. It's definitely gotten a lot better when I started this YouTube channel. But of course you guys don't hear the ums and likes that I still do because I edit my videos, and you don't see the full scope of how I actually talk if it was an in-person conversation or an in-person speech. And even though I am proud of myself for getting involved in different leadership organizations, there were a lot of times when someone asked me to give a presentation on something, or they were just in general reaching out and calling for speakers or something on a certain topic, and I would think to myself, hey, I would love to talk about that, but also putting myself in a room of 50 people, 100 people, even virtually, is so daunting to me, and I get the worst butterflies and anxiety when I have to speak publicly, even when my video is not even on. Like my previous company, we didn't have a lot of video calls, at least not on my team, so you know, all public speaking is done virtually, and they can't even see my face. It's just a shared screen, and I still would get the worst anxiety about it. But of course, practice makes perfect. If I maybe tried more to give more presentations and give more talks, maybe I wouldn't feel as nervous about it today. I mean, I obviously have gotten better since I started my job, and I talk a lot louder now, and I think more confidently compared to back then, because even during meetings when I first started my job, I had the quietest voice and no one could hear me. Everyone would always be telling me to speak up because they can't hear me, and that just honestly gave me more anxiety about speaking. But it's definitely gotten a lot better, and no one likes to hear it, but it really is, practice makes perfect. Maybe practice with people you're more comfortable with first, and then, you know, expand out and kind of go from there. Like, you don't have to start out with 100-person lobby and give a presentation on astrophysics or something. It can just be something simple like presenting a 5-minute topic to your manager or someone on your team, or even just one of your friends. Okay, number 5 on this list. This one's probably the bane of my existence, and that is worrying so much about the small, tiny little things that I think everyone is judging me for, or that I think everyone's gonna remember this small mistake that I made, or maybe there's a misspelling on a document that I sent or an email, and I'm like, oh my gosh, this person is gonna think that I cannot read. And I'm just coming up with all the scenarios of what this person might be thinking about me because I misspelled a certain word in a 3-paragraph email that I sent to them. It's just these small things that don't make a difference in your life, but they just consume your mind at that moment. And I'm not gonna lie, my first year of working, honestly, a lot of this just happens in your first year of working, and honestly it gets a lot better after that. So that's really where you learn a lot of your hard lessons, and I probably have the most regrets, honestly. But there are so many times I would go home and I would just feel so bad about myself and feel so much anxiety about what I did at work that day. For example, if I was working on something for my manager, I would send it to them and then they would send it back and say it looks good and provide feedback. I would be like, oh my god, why didn't I think of that? I cared so much because coming out of college, I was definitely a try-hard student in my senior year of college. Very, very try-hard. And I was always on top of my assignments, submitted them early. Senior year was probably my best year of college, just academically and being a student. So coming off of that into a work environment where I really don't know that much, and it's probably expected that I obviously get feedback, and feedback is good for me. I'm not saying I don't want feedback, but obviously I welcome it. It just made me feel bad about myself because I would just tell myself I should have known something, even though there's no way I would have been able to know that. Yeah, so yeah, basically a lot of nights just me staying awake, thinking about all the things I didn't know or did wrong. And honestly, I would say that time heals all wounds, and you will not feel that way forever. I felt that way in my first year, and honestly, never again. And it really just came with me getting more experience and feeling more confident in my skills, and knowing that the work that I'm doing at work is not tied to my self-value in my personal life. You know, there's a fine line between those two things, and that is no longer a boundary I cross. I just separate work and I separate my personal life. And I know I have this career YouTube channel where I obviously share some aspects of my work life, but everything I show from my work life is very high level, and I really just focus on informational content that is completely separate from the work that I do in my job. So yeah, for anyone struggling with that, definitely work on this side, personal life on the other side, and there's no mix. Just because you had a bad day at work doesn't mean you're a bad person or you don't deserve good things or that you're not smart. It's all relative in the grand scheme of things. Alright, the last career regret that I have on this list is not making as many deep connections with other people in the field, whether it's in the same company as me or outside. So this is definitely something I've been thinking about ever since I graduated college, and you know, this may not even have to do with careers in general. It's just the fact that it's so much harder to make friends as an adult after college, and your closest friends, I guess, are your coworkers. And I'm not saying that I wasn't friends with my coworkers, but I also feel like it just never went as deep as like we hung out or we were very close. I maybe had one coworker that was relatively close to compared to all the rest, but it was still never to the point where we were very close friends. And that's definitely something I've struggled with. I'm sure many people struggle with this as well, and that's just meeting people. And even though I was in the city with a lot of professionals, I always told myself I would go to meetup events or just going to more networking events at my company. But at the end of the day, I never really gave it that much effort to put myself out there and make new friends, specifically friends in my career and my field where we can talk about work and just overall expanding your network, because then you'll always have someone to pick their minds about. So yeah, that's probably one of my goals. Even though in my current job I will be working fully remote, I do think that everyone I've met so far in my company is really nice and really personable. So it's been a really pleasant experience getting to know people. So yeah, if you guys have some advice on making friends as an adult, feel free to drop them in the comments below. And this goes on top of making friends at work, meeting coworkers, getting a new mentor, finding a sponsor who can vouch for you. There's so many things that go into networking, so I just think it's probably one of the most important aspects of your career that a lot of people in their early careers kind of overlook, because let's face it, a lot of us are online. So yeah, that's it for this video. Let me know in the comments below if you have any career regrets in cybersecurity or generally across the board. and it would be awesome to get a little conversation started in the comments below. I post videos every Wednesdays and Sundays at 12 p.m. And if you like this video, please give it a thumbs up and subscribe and turn on post notifications. Thank you guys so much for watching, and hopefully I'll see you guys in my next video. Bye!